Dear friends, we are here today to discuss a serious incident that has happened in Melbourne. Yesterday, on the 12th of January, the BAPS Swaminarayan Temple in Melbourne was vandalized by Khalistan supporters. To discuss about this serious incident and get more updates, we have with us editors of the Australia Today, Jitarth Jay Bharadwaj and Dr. Amit Sarwal, joining us live from Melbourne today morning. Uh, Jay, let me start with you. Can you give us updates about this incident that has happened and which has left the Australian Hindu community in great distress?
Uh, Pallavi, let me explain from the start what has happened. So, on the night of 11th and 12th January, few apparently Khalistan supporters went to the Swaminarayan Temple, the BAPS Swaminarayan Temple here in Melbourne, which is located in the suburb of Mill Park. It's a beautiful temple, beautiful place, really calming, peaceful. Always, these people always help the community, be it floods or COVID pandemic or any other cause. They're always there to help Australian wider community as well as Indian diaspora here in Melbourne. However, they wrote on that the walls of that temple. These people, as per my information, I don't want to reveal the source, but those who are privy to few CCTV cameras, there were three people there. They wrote on the walls, Bindrawale is a martyr. So, praising and hailing a terrorist is very distressing. And I must remind you that this man, Bindrawale, was responsible for almost killing 20,000 Hindus and Sikhs in year 80s in India. So another thing they wrote was Hindustan, Hindu dash Stan Murdabad. If I can translate it for you from Hindi slash Urdu to English, that means a place for Hindu, a death to a place for Hindus, which is the temple. So they are claiming or they are propagating or they are issuing a threat that Hindu places or Hindus will be killed. That's a normal interpretation if somebody sees that. They also wrote about Indian Prime Minister Modi is a Hitler or something like that. Not going to the politics, let's talk about the religious aspects of it. Temple is a religious, Hindu religious place where people like normal people who go every day in the morning. That's the ritual for them. And first thing on the gates of the temple, when they say death to Hindus, you can imagine what kind of stress they must be feeling. And in temple, you go with your kids and young ones who are very impressionable. These kids will ask you, Daddy or Mama, what is written on the wall? And you got to tell them that it's written death to Hindus. Imagine what kind of stress and impression these kids will have. Why would somebody want death to Hindus? That's a bigger question. And I must remind you that this is not the first time these kind of slogans have been placed in public view. Just a few weeks back, there was a Khalistan rally here, which was glaringly showing kill Hindus posters. So it's just so stressing to Australian Hindu population that somebody is openly calling to kill Hindus and Hindu systems, and nobody, absolutely nobody, is doing anything. Very distressing at the time when in at the headquarters of BAPS Temple they are celebrating the 100-year centenary. I don't know how should A normal Indian Australian should take what has happened at that temple. Very strong religious vilification law is here in Victoria. I hope these perpetrators are thrown behind the bars. They face the full force of the law, and they are punished by Australian Victorian police and the laws which are there to protect Australian Hindu community. Pallavi?
Um, Amit, I'll come to you that we are seeing a pattern here. This is not the first time that Khalistan supporters have done something like this. We have seen banners, posters. We have done exclusive reports. Whether it was what happened at the Griffith Games earlier, and as Jay mentioned in the rally that was taken out in Melbourne, when there were clearly Khalistan flags and banners which were seen. The question really is that how is this happening? I mean, we all know about the terrorism in Punjab. We which was taken care of within India. That terrorism was crushed, and but it has left deep scars, deep wounds. There are families that have been victims of that terrorism. Some of those families live in Australia. Are the authorities in Australia absolutely not taking this into cognizance, that this is having serious impact on the community, and that people are fearing for their safety, and what is the kind of reaction you're seeing there, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, Pallavi, it's a very valid question and observation. So I'd like to divide that into two or three parts. The first part is basically local MPs and MLAs, also various community leaders and organizations have come out openly and criticize this blatant vandalism of a Hindu temple. So on that level, everyone is on the same page that these kind of incidents cannot happen in Australia, which is a peaceful multicultural community. There have been incidents involving certain communities, but those incidents are kind of wavy, it happens and because of some political inclinations, ideologies, etc. So on that page, everyone knows that Australia is a very peaceful multicultural community which respects all religions, cultures. And a good example is the thriving Indian community, an Indian diaspora, which includes Sikhs, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, right? So, and Hindus, obviously. The second part, to answer the second part, we are seeing a worldwide rise in desperation among certain ideologies which are political and not religious. This includes the Islamists. You can see Leicester, UK, certain portions of UK. So Khalistanis are borrowing elements from the Islamists playbook, which is basically attack, vandalize, and then hide behind religion, play a victim card saying that all Muslims want this or all Sikhs want this, which is pretty much clear that not all Sikhs want Khalistan, because Khalistan, just like Islamist ideology, is a political ideology, is not a religious ideology. So one thing I would like to make clear, that Sikhism is a religion which borrows things beautifully from Hinduism and other religions, Buddhism as well, and it's which is one of the newest, like I think under 500 old religion, right? They have been celebrating, and many Hindu families are also part of Sikhs. So I belong to a Punjabi family. We go to gurdwaras regularly. So remember that this Khalistan is a political ideology and not a religious ideology. Khalistan borrows a lot from Islamist Taliban kind of ideology, which is purifying the religion and all those things, right? And they have, so when you say terrorism, we all know about Khalistan terrorism in Punjab, how it was tackled through political, social, cultural means, and obviously policing. It never died, right? These people just conveniently shifted base to UK, USA, and Canada. Now they have changed their strategy. They are using human rights for justice kind of organizations. They have big money flowing in. They have started painting dreamy pictures about what they can do, what kind of Khalistan, they've released a map. Australia is a very new base for them. And as Jitat mentioned, the kind of rallies they organized was not enough to garner support among Sikh community here, right? Because Sikhs here in Australia have full support of Hindu, Buddhist, and other Indian communities. If you go to Murdabad,
Uh,
gurdwaras, because it is a place for community. So one of the things is very clear that this is an act of desperation. To quote from Kath and Kim, a very popular Australian comedy series, this is a look at Moy movement. Please look
yes.
at Moy, look at us, right? Look at me, basically. So in Aussie slang, it's look at Moy. So these people are just crying on social. Nobody in mainstream media is talking about it, and that would be the part three of your question. These people are trying to use TikTok, which is popular in Pakistan and China, right? The two bases, I assume, which are funding these Khalistanis, Canada and USA as well. They are using Twitter. They have, from August 2022 till now, they have created thousands of handles which have like insane names: human rights, human this, human power, and that kind of names. They are using, they have created names like Amit Bharadwaj or Pallavi Jain something, and they are retweeting it in mass numbers just to get attention. They are tagging people, they're using popular hashtags from education. So you can see there is desperation amongst Khalistani ideologues and Khalistani supporters, because their ideology has been trashed to the rubbish bin, and that not just to a recycle bin, because it's not going to be recycled, to an actual rubbish bin which will be dumped somewhere at a corner of the earth. Now, to come to the third part of your question, which is why isn't anyone talking about Khalistani movement? Because we were the first ones to cover our investigative reports. I think since last year we have been seeing this, the kind of um, Khalistan is trying to make an inroad. Many Australians are not aware about Sikh history and its closeness to Hinduism. How they are part and parcel of the same Sanatan Dharma. The second thing is they're not even aware of the history of Khalistani terrorism. Local MPs and MLAs, because it's not taught in the schools. I'm not surprised, because many Western countries teach very few things about South Asian countries. While in South Asia, when we were growing up, we knew everything about Australia, USA, Canada, UK. So our education system, schooling system, primary school system is much ahead. Just as an aside, recently New South Wales premier said that he was not aware about Nazism till the age of 21, which is surprising, because I knew about Nazism at the age of 6. I knew about Hitler and everything, how bad Hitler was, because that's what my school taught me, right? In the primary schools, 6th or 7th grade, they start teaching us about the bad movements, terrorism, and everything. So mainstream, and not just MLAs, but even journalists, mainstream journalists are not aware about Khalistan movement. If Jitat remembers how we stuck on the Sikh game story, was by looking at a Twitter handle of a very prominent public broadcaster, where she was saying, I enjoyed the games. These games were new. I enjoyed the food. I enjoyed the Punjabi Bhangra dance. And behind her, I could clearly see Khalistan Zindabad posters, death, and break India kind of. She never picked it up. She never bothered to pick up that story. Maybe she was a regional reporter. She had no idea about what's going on, or they don't want to touch these topics, thinking they're too controversial or hurt the sentiments of a community, without realizing that by not giving prominence to such stories, by not highlighting what Khalistan stands for, they are doing injustice to the whole Sikh community in Australia. What will happen is something like Canada or UK, where these elements will take over community membership, community organizations, and then tell people, politicians specifically, policymakers, that we represent the whole community. If you look at USA, any Sikh in USA will tell you that these are handful and they use violence. There are videos available on Twitter and public broadcasters in Australia where they have entered gurdwaras forcibly and asked committee members to move out of the gurdwaras because we are taking over. Problem is that peaceful Sikhs, peaceful Hindus don't fight back, right? We think of forgive, forget, and move on, because most of the people do not have time to engage with these antisocial elements. This happens in India as well, and these people have time, money, a lobby group, which is rather, as soon as they do anything, they have a support system already available. While I doubt that even Swaminarayan Temple would have a support system available, because people will go, they will watch they will take photographs, people will circulate, people will write to the government, local MPs, police, and then and this vandalism is not first. As Jitat pointed out, there have been other cases of vandalism. I think Durga Temple was attacked a few years back. Before that, around that same time, Gandhi statue was vandalized here. There were incidents of vandalism in USA and Canada as well recently, last year. So to summarize, my point, that we need more awareness about such ideologies, especially through mainstream Australian media. But right now, I think we are the only ones who have been highlighting this case or such cases, and I think we need local MPs to come out and say Khalistan is not welcome.
Yeah. I'll just like to mention here that people who want to know more about Khalistan terrorism and its history and alleged support to the Khalistan movement by ISI, in fact, there are, it's a well-known fact within security circles that allegedly ISI has been behind this entire terrorist movement, and they can look at our reports, which we will be putting the links on our YouTube video. They can follow our links and get a better perspective of what the Khalistan terrorism movement was all about. And I would like to let all the viewers know that before 9/11, the worst terrorist aviation attack that took place was by the Khalistanis, which was the bombing of Air India, the Kanishka bombing, in which over 300 people, if my memory serves me right, were killed. So this is not something that is to be taken lightly. This is not something that can just be brushed aside as a matter of just a graffiti painting in front of the temple. And Jay, I would like to come to you that it is very distressing as a member of the Australian community that if you it is unthinkable that something like this would be sprayed upon in front of any say the place of worship of any other religious community or any other cultural community, and that this has been happening again and again and again. And it seems that the authorities uh, are probably not taking this as seriously as they might have, if it involved some other community. I mean this is a perception, maybe. I'm not giving a conclusion here, but it's absolutely shocking, to say the least, that that there are antisocial elements who feel that they can do this and get away with it. And secondly, how is this even happening? I mean, this is absolutely unthinkable that this could be happening to any other group of people in Australia.
Um, Pallavi rightly said so. Unfortunately, what you are saying is true. Indian Australian community, and for specifically, if we could talk about Hindu community in Australia, does not have that kind of support system or a communicate to the authorities, be it police authorities or political authorities or other administrative authorities in councils or in state government or in federal government or to the home department or all other multicultural associations or councils. They don't have their representatives there who could talk about the plight of Hindus, or their issues, or their, how to, or their concerns, how to resolve them. So we don't have. So there is a complete breakdown between Indian Australian or Indian Hindu community and the authorities. Now, the media, as you know, Australian media is, they don't bother to get into issues which concern the ethnic, they call it very comfortably ethnic communities. They don't care about what is happening into ethnic communities unless and until it bothers the so-called mainstream community. If it bothers the so-called mainstream community, and that too in a bad way, then pictures will be all over the places. Every reporter will be covering the story. But if supposedly it's within the communities, Khalistanis are bothering Hindus, they don't care about it. This is one. But for this instance, I would say that it seems at this point in time, it seems that something is happening about the current situation which we are talking about. The assistant, not assistant, deputy commissioner of police here in Victoria, for community safety and community engagement, he is on top of what has happened yesterday, and he's spearheading the whole investigation. Another thing, some political support has come. The local member for Mill Park, where this temple is situated, she's also a minister for energy here in the Victorian government. Lily, she has also come in support. She has talked to the management of temple, BAPS Temple, and assured them any support will be rendered to temple about, and they will try and catch these people who have done whatever they have done. Second, the leader of Liberal Party and MP from the same area has also come forward to support the BAPS Temple. And I could see a number of other people have posted on social media, political, social, and religious leaders, that this is one of the most heinous thing, a hate crime against Hindus. And in this hour of stress, distress, they stand behind peaceful Hindu community of Victoria. So at least we have made one step forward. I can quote President of Hindu Council of Australia's Victoria chapter, Mr. Bhagwat, Makarand Bhagwat. He has told us categorically that they are in touch with the Minister for Multicultural Affairs. So they have also sought an audience with Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews. I'm not sure if that happens or not. It depends on scheduling the meeting, but it's very necessary. It will be reassuring Australian Victorian Hindu community that the premier there is also our premier. At this point in time, I have talked to a number of Hindu community members, and they feel as if the political brass or the government machinery just don't care about them. They are somewhere less citizens of Victoria than anyone else. This notion has to be removed, and it can only be removed by a proactive work or outreach by the administrative body of the government. Now, another thing, let me go towards Hindu community. They also lack active representation. They have to somehow participate into the groups which advocate. We need advocacy at the highest level. So how do you do that? I don't see any uh, Hindu representation at VMC or Multicultural Council. Where is it? We need it. And unless people put themselves forward, volunteer their time and effort for this, nothing will happen. So at this juncture, I would urge everyone to please get into this advocacy places so that your voice and your concerns can also be heard and resolved at the same time.
Mm.
Um, Amit, I would like to ask you here that this is not the first incident. It's one thing if it was the first incident. You could say that people don't know about it or the authorities
Mm.
don't know about it. Now this has been happening for a while, and we have been actually highlighting about this issue
Mm.
again and again.
Mm.
It just seems to me that because the issue here is that this is not just about the Indian community or the Hindu community. This is about security interests of
Mm.
Australia.
Mm.
This is not. I mean, the people who were
Mm.
killed in the terrorist attack in
Mm.
in the Kanishka air bombing by Khalistani terrorists were
Yeah.
Canadian citizens,
Yes.
many of them.
Yep.
So this is about Australia's own security. This is not some external issue, and
Mm.
it's almost like it's like having a ostrich kind of a mentality. See, whatever political differences you may like a prime minister, you may dislike him or her,
Mm.
you may support a party, oppose a party,
Mm.
but this is way beyond that. I mean, this is
Mm.
a dangerous and serious situation, and if you don't nip it in the bud,
Yeah.
this could have serious consequences for Australian security. So do you think that the Australian security agencies are taking cognizance of this situation, or is it still something that they are like, not taking that seriously?
Pallavi, I hope so that they are doing the due diligence, because one of the things, as Jitat also mentioned here, is that when police authorities here get involved, common people usually do not know how the investigation is progressing until they do the complete check. I am hopeful that the Australian authorities are doing everything in their power to get hold of these people, looking at CCTVs, not just at the temple, but around the area as well. Uh, Coming back to a point that I've been raising on Twitter and other social media, is that Australian authorities must learn from the Canadian experience of Khalistan. And Canadian experience of Khalistan has resulted in the top 10. If you look at the Canada's top 10 wanted list, you will have but members of one particular community there in the list, right? So Khalistan is also using gangsters now. If you remember the recent killing of a popular singer in Punjab, one of the gangsters took responsibility, right? So they are using. So it's kind of a many-headed serpent. Such ideologies are, as I said, they are learning from a lot from Islamists who have. Bogus organizations which are named for human rights, for justice, for peace, for equality, these kind of things. And on the other hand, they have also organizations which call themselves brotherhoods. And then the third is organizations which people like Zakir Naik and others head, right, which claim about purity of certain religions. And similarly, these people have certain organizations which do. I have no, I have no, animosity towards any religion or anything. If you are peaceful, if you are following your religion, if you want people to convert to your religion, I welcome that as well. People are free, right? People should be free to follow any religion, any ideology, any political ideology. But once you start moving towards vandalism, it shows your desperation. The next step obviously is beating, thrashing people on the streets, right? The third step would be something like Kanishka, which happened in Canada. So if Canadian authorities had stopped these people at certain point, Kanishka would not have happened, right? But we can't go back into the past. We can save our future in Australia. At least the authorities here can learn from the Canadian experience. Also, remember that, as I said in my previous answer to you, that this is a look at Moy kind of movement where they want people to pay attention to Khalistan. They want them to take seriously. So all these activities are done to take street cred, which means street credibility. You should be afraid of Khalistan when walking on the street. You should respect me. So this is something from um, the American experience, where American gangsters used to beat up people just for the heck of it, or Mumbai mafia, just to send a message. They would, shoot at someone's house. So this is just to send a message that we are here. You should be afraid of us. And if, as I said, if authorities do not take, if community do not take a stand right now, we are heading towards a Canadian experience ourselves. I think you are aware that I am a Canadian resident as well, and I decided not to move to Canada because during my stay there, every taxi driver told me, especially who lived in Surrey and Brampton, that they are making life really hard for peaceful people. So these are not Hindu taxi drivers; these were Sikh taxi drivers. One of them told me that they have sent their son to study abroad, and I was like, for me, coming from India, abroad is Canada and Australia. If someone is now sending their children away from these places to study, just because they think they are not able to study, say, well in Canada because of radicalization, um, it is sending a really serious message. And uh, one of the things I would like to request to Australian MPs and MLAs, politicians and policymakers, is to stop writing letters without investigating the whole incident and ideology of a particular community. I have seen that there are certain political representatives who wrote letters, right? So when someone approaches you for a letter, please ask them to give the whole incident report. Please ask them to give what you stand for. What these Khalistani elements are using is they are pushing their for human rights, for equality, for justice, and for these kind of thing, for food safety people, and saying that these are our actual representative. These people are not actual representative. They are just a flimsy layer of this movement. You tap on it and you will see a rotten core inside, a rotten ideology which stands for not peace, not justice, not harmony, right? So Australian policymaker, politicians, and also mainstream media need to understand that this ideology does not stand for anything except chaos and violence.
Yeah, and I would like to add here that the Khalistani terrorism that rocked India in the 80s, there were Hindus and Sikhs that were killed, thousands
Yeah.
of them. So it is very, very important that people in Australia know the distinction between Sikhs and Khalistanis. And it's very vitally important to make that distinction very clear that this is a very distinct ideology, and of course. Sorry, Amit, you want to
Pallavi,
say
if I
something?
may add, you have pointed out very right that it was because of Khalistani ideology, almost all Punjabis suffered, including Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, Muslims, right? Punjab is made of all these people. They suffered, and it was a Sikh police officer who controlled these. It was
Yes,
not
yes,
a
yes.
Hindu officer, it was a Sikh officer who led Sikh chief minister who paid a heavy price,
with
uh,
his life.
right? So so on Twitter, on social media, these people come out and say all Sikhs want Khalistan. And then I message this guy. I have two Sikh friends sitting right next to me, and they say they do not want Khalistan. And they immediately tweeted, "These are not Sikhs," right? So if you do not want Khalistan, if you do not agree with them, then you are not Sikh. Even now, if all Sikhs wanted Khalistan, if you look at Punjab's population, it would they can easily get it. But people don't want Khalistan, and that's one of the things that Australians, Canadians, UK, US policymakers need to understand, that these are handful people who do not represent the whole community.
Yes, and it is important to note here as well that when Punjab was partitioned, I mean there were many Sikhs who lived in Pakistan, which is a Punjab province in Pakistan, and there's been near ethnic cleansing of Sikhs there. Lahore was the capital of Sher Punjab, Ranjit Singh, and the birthplace of the founder of Sikhism, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, is also in Pakistan, where there's almost ethnic cleansing. From over, I think, hundreds of thousands of Sikhs were there. Now there are a couple, maybe 10 or 50,000 left. So, and the role of the alleged role of ISI in this movement is well documented. And ISI, of course, is the security agency, spy agency in Pakistan. And I would like to mention here that Osama bin Laden, the world's most notorious terrorist, was found in an army cantonment area, near an army cantonment area in Abbottabad. It is also important to note here that 41 Australian soldiers were killed by Taliban, which allegedly, has been supported by Pakistan, while it was at that point of time taking money from Western countries, supposedly to fight Taliban. So these facts have to be brought to light in front of Australian politicians, in case they are not aware of these facts,
Yeah.
or they think they're distinct issues. But important to bring this to light, I think, as well.
It's very important, and one of the things that Australians need to understand, that Indian community is not a new community in Australia. Indians have been migrating since the mid to late 19th century, 1880s and 1890s. And my whole research on Indian diaspora in Australia, South Asian diaspora in Australia, covers that. I've written a lot, 4 books on India's culture, dance, religion here. Sikhs were able to establish the first Gurdwara in Bulgula. Do you think that it was only Sikhs who were praying at that Gurdwara? If there was no Hindu temple, then Hindus from Punjab region were also participating in that Gurdwara. So communities were living peacefully. Even during 1960s, 70s, when there was a skilled migration happening to Australia, Hindus and Sikhs have been living peacefully. Hindus have been going to all the Gurdwaras. It is only now that we see this global kind of anti-Hindu movement going on. As I said, I have no problem if you want to make Khalistan, right? You can have any kind of political ideology, but that political ideology, there are countries created all over the world. You can see there are smaller countries even being made now. People are asking for their countries, right? But the demand should be based on some logic. If it defies logic, for example, there is a very popular video where a Sikh gentleman who was formerly associated with Khalistan says that he asked the US and Canada-based Khalistanis, why do you want Khalistan? They said, we want a separate nation, right? And so who will be welcome in this separate nation? Then the Khalistani guys replied, everyone would be welcome in this Khalistani nation. So will Muslims be welcome? Yes. Will Hindus be welcome? Yes. Christians? Yes. But that's happening in India right now. In Punjab, Hindu, Muslim, Sikhs, everyone is living there. So what's the problem with present Punjab? So at the end of the day, these people who live outside of India want control, right? They want to dictate the lives of Punjabis. They don't want to come back. So he said, if you claim you have 1 million followers outside, will the 1 million people come back to Khalistan? No, we can't come back because we have lives here. Then why do you want to destroy our lives? It's a very funny, satirical, ironical conversation where he points out that these people have no policy, no framework, no logic, yet they are approaching policymakers abroad, politicians abroad, uh, with their demand for Khalistan. And you mentioned Pakistan. Pakistan was made on a very similar ideology, right? They wanted a separate state for Muslims. Many Hindus stayed there, many Sikhs stayed there. We all know how the population has declined. Many Hindus and Sikhs have to run away from Pakistan. And Pakistan is right now going through economic crisis because of its support for terrorism, which is not something that is hidden from the world. Uh, America can try to sweep it under the carpet. They can put boxes of money on that carpet to hide the fact about Osama bin Laden and others. Um, I chat with Afghan people here a lot, and they blame Pakistan a lot for their miserable lives and why they had to run away. I have I talk to neighbors who are engineers, doctors. They don't like such practices. At the end of the day, every human being wants to live a peaceful life. That's why someone can say, why did you migrate from Australia, India to Australia or Canada or UK? We migrated, we still stay in touch, we remit a lot, we respect all the cultures, right? These people uh, do not respect the culture they come from. They do not respect the culture they have moved to. They want to create a fantasy culture called Khalistan, which, as I said, is not welcome in peaceful multicultural communities. And that's my kind of grievance, especially among with the Australian policymakers, is that they are not ready to understand. They're not even trying to understand what these people stand for. They go on a flimsy ground of bushfire relief, food, and packages. But these are Sikhs who are doing it. They are not Khalistanis who are doing it, right?
Sure.
There are
Yeah.
Hindus also doing this. There are Muslims also doing. If you go to Northern Territory, Darwin, you will see a lone Sikh gentleman handing out food packages. You will also see a Hindu man doing the same thing in Northern Territory and Adelaide, and in Perth, you will see a Muslim man doing the same thing. So this is inherently coming from, this is humanity, not just religion, right? So there is need to create more awareness, especially if mainstream media, because we are journalists, and I'm kind of surprised, also dismayed, that public broadcasters are not doing anything in their power to create a more cohesive community. They are not highlighting. Canada also, there was one journalist who kept fighting, who kept highlighting this. Even now, he's very vocal. Um, but if politicians, I do not blame much, because politicians everywhere have a vote bank kind of mentality. These are my vote bank. They may not use the same word. They can use different kind of words. But we need to move beyond this vote bank kind of politics. As Jitarth pointed out very well, that the local politicians, especially Victorian, because this is happening in Victoria at the moment, Victorian Premier needs to take a stand at this moment. And that stand will send a positive message amongst community members that such elements are not welcome. And I would like to point out, I think we have pointed out in our investigative report, that many of the people who are here for the referendum are also responsible, I guess, for these kind of chaotic antisocial behavior, because they are borrowing it from, say, Canada and USA. They know the playbook. They have written the playbook,
Is the
right?
template.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
So if locals wanted to do this, they could have done it in the last 20, 30 years. The timing is very important. One, referendum happening in January. Second, BAPS Swaminarayan Temple celebrating the 100th year of Pramukh Swami. So they just wanted to send a message, because Modi is Gujarati, Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi is Gujarati. They just want to send a message back home to Narendra Modi, right? And Dr. S. Jaishankar has already raised the matter with Penny Bong. When he visited here, he said, we have raised it. Ministry of External Affairs has already sent a dossier through High Commission. So these people know that the pressure is building up on the Australian government. Now the ball is basically in the Australian government, ACO, police, court, and we have to just wait and watch, how they handle these elements.
Yeah, and I would like to add here, though, Amit, that I have a slight, uh, uh, distinction from your position on on Khalistan, in the sense that I, as a staunch secularist, I do not believe that countries should be based on religion. That's a very
Yeah.
the countries should be secular, liberal, progressive, because having countries based entirely on religion is a very exclusive way of looking at things, that, oh, we are all of one religion, so we'll make a country. I am against that principle. I am a staunch secularist. So so that's why I do not subscribe to any ideology which says that we must have a country for our race, our religion, our community. I don't subscribe to that.
No, no, no. Even I
But
don't subscribe to that. I agree with you. I said I'm I'm all open to hear ideas. If you want, if Jitat and I want to create a country, people should be open to our idea as well. That's what
No,
dialogue
no,
and
but I
discourse
will be
means.
the prime minister.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone else to
See,
be prime
the
minister.
thing is that, and therefore I gave the example of Pakistan, which was created on the idea that everyone is welcome, but it's going to be a Muslim country. That idea doesn't work, right? And we have
yeah,
seen that. We in the 90s, people started teaching us about globalization, and now we are moving towards localization again. So these things have to be kept in mind. And as I said, you can protest against farm laws, you can protest against CAA, that's your right, right? But there should be a
absolutely.
logical protest. You should fight any bill with logic, not with violence. That's what I'm saying. Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Buddhists, everyone have a right to protest, everyone had a right to freedom, freedom to profess their religion, convert people. But if you are using violent means, if you are using shady means, that's not what I stand for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So and then if your anti-India activism becomes anti-Hindu activism, that's problematic, because now you are targeting one community. And I have been raising this question again and again. What will happen after Hindus? You will target another community. After that community, you will start targeting another community. And then you will come back to your own group and you will start targeting your own people, right?
Yeah.
Who do not stand with you at certain point of time. So these kind of ideologies have no uh, logical base to stand upon.
Yeah, no,
Right?
absolutely. And I think you had made that point clearer, as you went ahead. But I just thought that for our viewers, it was, I felt that we should, clearly state where we stand on this particular
And
issue.
just coming back to Jitat, he said that he would love to be, Prime Minister of Khalistan. There is already a Chief Minister who said that he can become Prime Minister of Khalistan,
What are you
just
saying?
for getting political
My
votes.
position is taken now?
No, no, he's also said, but that's allegedly said. But again, these are the things that we should look about. That people live in multicultural societies; they should respect each other's. So if you are not happy with Swaminarayan Temple, go and talk to the committee members. Even if you represent Khalistan ideology, you should go and talk to the members. You should go and talk to the police. You should go and talk to the CGI Melbourne or the Australian High Commissioner. They are open to dialogue. Everyone is open to dialogue. But if you
Yeah.
start using these means, anti-social means, who will support you? So I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that these guys have made, uh, by taking lightly that Australian authorities won't look at these people. And as I said, this is an act of desperation from an ideology which has no locus standi.
Yeah, I would like to come in here, Jay, and I would like to bring you back in. That as I think Amit mentioned, that this issue has been raised by Dr. S. Jaishankar, who's
Mm.
India's external affairs minister, with Senator Penny Wong. Now, this, as I had mentioned earlier, is not just a simple act of vandalism. This is a threat. This is harassment. This is bullying, and this can be very intimidating for a lot of people. And as you said, that the idea perhaps is to scare people. It is perhaps to create that fear, to terrorize. But what really baffles me is that. This is that people know that the Indian government has raised it with the Australian government, and yet you see this kind of audacious behavior. What does it say about uh, what does this say about the authorities, and what does this say about the Australian government stand, really? Like, because India is, the Australian government says that India is is an important friend, is an ally in the region, in the Indo-Pacific region. They're members of the Quad, and now there's economic treaty and stuff like that. But really, at the crux of it, if a bunch of social antisocial elements feel that they can get away with this, when this is something that has been raised at the foreign minister's level, what does this really say?
Let me dissect it for everyone that how system works. So at the top of everything is the federal government, which is kind of very friendly, supportive towards India as a country.
Hmm.
They are in very good relationship in terms of business, in terms of their security ties, in terms of their diplomatic ties. That's fantastic. On the top, it is. When you name Jaishankar raising the issue of Khalistan menace, or letting his counterpart Penny Wong know about what is going on globally and how it can impact Australia. So the federal government has certain security aspects which they cover, which are under their control. That any foreign influence or internal security issue does not rise on the levels of terrorism and everything. Now, come back to the incident which happened on the 12th early morning here in Melbourne. That doesn't necessarily fall in the parameters of SEO. They are the secure home affairs security apparatus, though they have been notified of it, but graffiti vandalism is not under their purview. So they probably won't do or interfere or put their finger on this. However, the Victoria Police, which on the local, on a police station level, sees it as a other vandalism, another graffiti which we have seen towards mosques, churches, Buddhist synagogues, or anywhere, number of places, number of religious places. We have seen in last few years there have been attacks, this kind of vandal attacks on religious places. They see it on that purview, that this is domestically local, some idiot coming up and doing something stupid. However, they do not understand this connection with the overseas players. And I kind of a movement which is Khalistan movement gaining support and radicalization of the youths here in Australia, here in Melbourne, which is demonstrated in such vandalism on Hindu temples. So there is somewhere disconnect between the local system and the federal system or the upper level of the security apparatus. That's why on the first instance I was trying to tell that advocacy and awareness campaigns need to be run towards everyone in this food chain, from the local constable who looks after your street to up to the level of the home affairs director for community engagement and safety. So these whole apparatus has to be made aware of what we are dealing with. You probably know much more than most people here. Amit Sarwal has done so much research. I have written few stories on this. So now community, Indian, Australian and Hindu community, and I would urge within Sikh community also, they have to move forward and explain and make it simple for these authorities, may that be multicultural commission, may that be multicultural minister, may that be police authorities, may that be commissioner of police, everyone else, we need to make them aware what is going on, and then only this can happen. I mean, this can be stopped only if every bit and piece of information is passed on to the right people, and community at large need to come forward and cooperate and associate themselves towards a solution. We all know the problem, but the missing part of the puzzle is the solution, how,
Mm.
where, and how to deal with it.
Mm.
So unless everyone works towards the solution, and it has to be combined hand, it has to be a 5 eye technique, that from all sides you have to uh, work for the solution, and then probably we might see the end of this menace, which is really, if not tackled, will be really dangerous and have ugly scenes here in Australia, I'm afraid to say that.
Yeah,
Pallavi?
Amit, I would like to come back to you here that as far as this incident is concerned, so far, to the best of my knowledge, zero coverage by mainstream Australian media, if I'm correct. Now, also, we have seen in the past that there has been, a bit of wishy-washy kind of, narrative being formed that this is some
Mm.
inter-community tension, within the
Mm.
Indian diaspora and stuff
Mm.
like that, which we know is absolutely false.
Mm.
Generating these false equivalents of, there is some inter-community tension. No, this is a dangerous situation of supporters of Khalistan
Mm.
terrorism, who are creating, a serious situation, and which is impacting the community, because as we know, Jay, that there are victims of Khalistan terrorism, Hindus and Sikhs, who are, some of whose families live in Australia. So what what can be done really to, maybe make the Australian media more aware, and why do you think there is such silence and such lackadaisical attitude from the media when it comes to the Hindu community, and the Hindu community being attacked so openly? Like, this is not even covert, this is open intimidation, open bullying, open vilification, open hate crime, and yet uh, very surprising and disappointing, to say the least.
I think one of the things Jay has, I think, kind of already answered your question, but I'll just like to add on that the mainstream media does not, for them, hate crime would be white on black or brown, right? Or the other way around. Now, a reverse racism kind of thing. But when it comes to Hindus, Sikhs doing something to Hindus doing something, it's an ethnic matter. It's like a family matter for them because that community belongs to the same region. So they're not interested in looking into it. And the other thing that happens is when something happens, we report or mainstream media reports, then both the victim and the community to which the perpetrators belong. I'm not saying that the community supports the perpetrators, but because these perpetrators are giving a bad name to the whole community, they also go on a back foot. So they try to contact the community leaders, each other, and say, please let the matter go, let it be, forget, we are sorry. But that's not brought out, and that's what's going to happen in this case and many other cases. This has happened. Once things happen, both communities take a bad foot because no one wants bad publicity, right? No one wants these kind of things to come into the limelight. Even now, we saw that we did the story, Indian media picked it up, but not the Australian media. Surprisingly, the two public broadcasters did not even bother to mention it or cover it. They are paid to cover these things. Public broadcasters, especially one of the public broadcasters, has to cover these stories, and they have got three language channels which need to do this, but they haven't done it. It can be their editorial decision. Maybe they don't think this is a serious matter, this is not newsworthy. But if 90 Indian channels are picking this, then I'm not saying this is not newsworthy at all, right? The other thing is something that happens that I've seen now. Initially, when I used to see that, I thought maybe they're just trying to balance out the story. But now I'm confident that someone is sweeping these incidents under the carpet, especially in other media. Certain Indian community leaders as well are trying to sweep these things under the carpet. They don't want these things to be highlighted, and they do not understand because they do not have the kind of research experience that, say, we have, or the journalistic experience like you and Jay have. What they do is they just want to be photographed with the minister. They just want to be photographed with key policy makers. They just want to attend functions of all the community. They do not want to take a stand. All communities. So I'm not just blaming any particular leader. I'm just pointing out that community leaders need to take a stand and say these things are not okay, these things are okay, right? So that needs to be clearly done. When you send mixed messages, when you point out that this is just vandalism, so this is not the kind of graffiti and vandalism that you see around Melbourne metro railway stations, right? This vandalism means something to a particular community. This vandalism sends a message to that particular community, not just to the community, to an entire nation, right? They're trying to send a message to one country. So one of the things I would like to request our journalist counterparts in mainstream media and public broadcasters is to just report the matter. You don't have to take sides. Like we didn't take sides. In our last investigative reports, we asked the Khalistani gentlemen to give their point of view as well. What do they want from the whole thing? We didn't take, we are not Hindu media. We are the Australia Today. Our job is to just report the matter. This happened. These are the people who allegedly did this. These are what the authorities saying. These are what the ministers are saying. There is no point of taking sides when you are a journalist. You just report the matter, you do your job, you move on to the next story. It is up to the authorities and community to deal with the matter. Our job as journalists is to report the matter as per our knowledge, whatever is supplied to us, right? And this is somewhere where my answer is that what media here is not doing, both public broadcasters and mainstream, the so-called mainstream media are not doing. They are thinking that these things are not newsworthy, and therefore it's better to sweep it under the carpet or let it escalate, and then we will do it. Let's see where it goes from here, right? And then we will report it. So as I said, journalists are also part of the food chain that you were talking about. So their awareness, their education is should also be part and parcel of the whole thing. Pallavi.
I would like to say here as well that it is incumbent on journalists to tell the truth. It's not about taking sides, but you have to tell the truth as it is without letting your own biases coming into the picture, and and not be afraid of telling the truth, no matter how inconvenient or unpleasant it may be. That is predominantly your job as a journalist. Now, my final question to you, Jay, is that my perception is that if this had happened to in any other religious place, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think that there would be this kind of razor silence from the mainstream Australian media. I don't want to presume too much, but I don't think that if it was any other so to speak ethnic community, that there would be this kind of silence over it. I can't say that conclusively, but from from my reading of the Australian media, when such attacks have happened on other places of worship of other communities, there has been some reporting on it in the mainstream media, and so why do you think that is? Do you think that the Hindu community is not active enough? Are they, don't they make their voices heard, or do you think they just don't count, even though they are extremely educated, high tax paying, extremely successful community, getting awards, getting distinctions in every field that you can imagine, whether it's medicine, engineering, science, accountancy, you name it. And yet, are we is the is the Hindu community in particular that voiceless, that a temple is vandalized, a temple is attacked, a community is threatened, and yet zero coverage from the Australian media?
Wow, wow, this is a very good question. I love this question. And I will answer it against the popular beliefs. I, being a journalist for last almost 23, 24 years, I don't look that old, but still I am. Uh, Believe me, journalists don't have 4 ears, three brains, or 20 hands to look at everything which is happening around. So, how do we get news? We get news when somebody tells us something. Of course, we as journalists, we need to be receptive. That is me as journalist, that is my job. But how do I get information? I get information when somebody gives it to me. So now comes the portion of people who give this information to the journalist. So let me ask, um, uh, it might not feel very good. Has the Hindu temple, which has been vandalized, have they released a press release for journalists? The answer is no. Okay, forget about them. Then talk about Hindu organization, other Hindu organization. They have rightly so uh, given statements of support and condemning the whatever has happened. But have they released a press release for the journalists that what has happened and giving them background and everything? No, they have not. Okay, they might not have done. Let's come to the voiceless Hindu community. So, how many of these Hindu community members? I assume in Victoria there are almost 250,000 Hindu community members. They might be from India, coming back from Nepal, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Fiji, anywhere else. Combined population of Hindu community in Victoria is more than 250,000 people. So when you talk about these 250,000 people, they are happy to write on their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or any other social media account what they ate today, where they visited, what kind of movie they watched, what cake they had. They liked a flower, they were walking past, they saw something. How many of them has tagged Channel 9, 7, Age, Herald, ABC, SBS about the incident with the pictures and videos of what has happened? I will say minimum 10, 15, 20. If you are so reluctant yourself to raise your own plight, then who else will care about you? If I was a reporter or editor of Age, if I would have received 200 emails, 100 phone calls, or messages, or 100 tags on Twitter or Facebook or whatever social media you use about this incident, I would have bothered to inquire. However, if Indian Australian community, and in particularly Hindu community, doesn't care about their own plight, people coming and vandalizing their temple, then nobody else will. I'm not sure whether I have answered your question, but I have at least ranted about something.
Yeah.
Pallavi.
Concluding comments, Amit, what would you like to say?
I agree with Jay. in almost all respects. But I also think that journalists have a duty of care towards the community. And for example, many of the community stories that I have written have been picked up from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And then I expanded on, I talked to people, I covered that. So it's not that if community is not going to come to me, I'm not going to go to the community. I also have to go, are you okay? Are you doing fine? Something happened. I just heard about it. So as a journalist, I can ask my editor. That's what we used to do at SBS. We used to follow up on something that we would see. Yes, in mainstream, sometimes you have to make a case for why this story is newsworthy, why it should be done. But most of the time, because this is happening to an Indian Australian uh, peaceful and prosperous community who's contributing, so it is duty of all news channels, policymakers, and politicians to not just believe in tokenisms and actually ask, "Are you doing okay?" Right? Just don't celebrate any day. Just don't celebrate multiculturalism because you want to look good. In feature reports, you want your citizens to be happy. You have to control these elements. You want a welcoming, Indian Australian community. You want the Indian Australian students to come here. You have to make them. You have to assure the parents. These reports are going back. It will, if these things rise, ultimately it will impact the student numbers as well. It will impact the tourism industry. So people have to be a bit aware. But I think the Australia Today is doing a good job. As a team, we are highlighting all these issues. People have been picking up these stories in India. We have kind of become a voice that can be trusted about Indian Australian and Australian news, unlike other community newspapers. So we have set a benchmark for how community news should be presented. Maybe the mainstream media can learn a thing or two from us. But overall, as I said, these are distressing times. And these are not distressing times because of something a natural event. These are distressing time because a particular ideology wants to create chaos amongst two peaceful groups who have been contributing a lot to Australia, Hindus and Sikhs, and they want to create an animosity. They want an atmosphere of mistrust, and that's how these ideologies thrive. So, and I was looking at most of the statements given by BAPS, the Hindu community, even some of the Sikh organizations. They have clearly said that we want peace in Australia. We want peace amongst community. We should thrive for a better Australia. And that's what I request everyone, that if you are a Sikh, if you are a Hindu, and if you have such elements who want to create chaos in Australia, please kick them out. Please report them to authorities. Even if you report them to local authorities, then as Jitat said, if you get 100 calls about certain individuals that they are trying to create, authorities will definitely look it up. So it's not like by not reporting, you're trying to save a person. Basically, you can save 1,000 lives. Just like, if someone has reported the Kanishka attackers at certain point of time, lots of lives could have been saved. These are not 300 people who died. You must look at the thousands of relatives, friends, grieving friends that they left behind. And they are still grieving, right? So these are some things that we need to look at as a community. Pallavi?
Yeah. I would like to say here that I don't entirely believe that the Australian media or journalists are simply not aware of what's happening. I think there is something deeper here. I cannot believe we have covered it. If 20 channels in India could have picked up the story, it would be very baffling and frankly kind of unbelievable that none of the news media in Australia saw this, and we, as with our limited resources, we try to cover everything, all communities, as many communities as we can, whether it's a attack on a Ahmadiyya mosque in Melbourne, or whether it's a bomb blast in Kabul. We do that we try to cover as many communities as possible. So it is I somehow am not inclined to believe that the journalists don't know about it, or the journalists aren't
Mm.
aware, or not even that they think that it's not newsworthy. I mean, how can a vilification, vandalism of a religious place of worship, I mean, I cannot imagine that a mosque or a synagogue or a church or even a gurudwara is vandalized, and that no Australian media would pick it up. I would be very surprised if that happened. But Jay, your concluding comments.
See, I can only tell everyone who is watching right now, if you have an incident, if you have a concern, if you want to report something, please do not hesitate to contact admin at the australiatoday.com.au. We are here for you, and we'll report without fear and favor. And for this, what has happened at BAPS Temple, we are following up the story. We'll come up with a detailed update for you. Thank you so much.
Uh, Thank you.
Thank you.